Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me well enough? Good. I haven't said anything yet. Welcome to our new home. I hope you're all enjoying it. I must tell you that the people here have been incredible to work with. We couldn't ask for a nicer place and a nicer group of people to help us pull off all the things that we're going to be doing at the hotel this year. I'm not going to get into the rewards thing right away. We've got a really full schedule, so I'm going to go ahead and we'll just get right through it, and I will come back and we'll close the meeting with the club announcements and a little explanation on all the goodies that come with working with the Melia. So first, let me introduce Rebecca Weldon. Rebecca has been with us before and has enlightened us about museums, and there are a ton of museums in this part of the world that we can take advantage of, and she's going to help us navigate those and get the ones that are most closely aligned to our interests. Rebecca.
It's up there.
It's right there. Sorry. There we go. Okay. And I presume everyone can hear me. Well, it's wonderful to be back here again with you, and nice to see so many friends and people that I hope to get to know. You're going to have to put up with me talking about my favorite subject. I work in museums, and if you fall asleep, don't apologize. So I'm going to kind of move this so I can see what I'm actually talking about. Museums in Chiang Mai. We have a lot of them, as you know, and Payap Lifelong Learning has started to do a series of excursions to museums, and we've been doing talks also and talked about the culture and history. So it's an opportunity for us as supporters of the Expat Club now to share what we've been doing. Our community, of course, Chiang Mai, and in the center you'll see Chiang Mai written in Northern Thai, which is our original language up here, and down below, Mueang Chiang Mai, which is what I'll be talking about. So in the province, we have 120 museums. These are pictures of just a few. You might recognize most of them. You may have driven by them on occasion, but I'll talk about the different types of museums in the province. We have historic buildings. Up at the top, you see the buildings, the old courthouse and the original administration office for the Monton Payap, which was the original administrative center from Siam. And then Princess Dara Rasami's house, I'll talk a little bit more about it. Down below, the Lana Architecture House Center, which is the Kum Chau Burirat. And then we have all of the old buildings behind Chiang Mai University. I'll talk about that as well. We also have a lot of university-associated museums. And up at the top, very famous, associated with Silpakorn University, the Fine Arts University in Bangkok, is the National Museum, which is a center for research, study, archaeology, and collection of everything that's in the ground. Everything in the ground belongs to the state and belongs to the country, so they keep it there. And up on the right, of course, Dara Rasami's home is being administered by Chulalongkorn University. And then at Chiang Mai University, the old house collection, but also the art center. And they are also in charge of the Lana Architecture Center, Kum Chau Burirat. And Ratchapat University has a wonderful center for Lana ethnicity. Here's some pictures, all the way up at the top actually. You probably won't recognize it. It's from Chiang Mai University. It's at the nursing faculty. We have a nursing faculty at Payap as well, and a small museum, but I thought it would be interesting to show. And then down in the middle, you see the art center, and on the right-hand side, one student visiting the Lana Ethnicity Center, and then down below, the National Museum. We also have a lot of natural history sites, insects, trees, botany, and also the zoo. We'll talk about all of this a little bit later. And I had to have a memorial photograph of our dear panda who has gone on to his reward, but was a very popular, very popular resident of the Chiang Mai Zoo. And up top, the Insect Museum, and down below, the Botanical Collection. Archaeology is a very big part of our cultural heritage here. And the best museum to go to it's actually an archaeological site that you can run around. Vien Kum Kam up at the top there on the left. Vien Kum Kam was the first original city that was built by King Ming Rai. It got flooded though, so he said, might move somewhere else. So then he moved closer to the Bing River where we live now. And other archaeological sites, but Vien Kum Kam is really wonderful to visit. You see the archaeology site, and down below they have a little museum there too as well. But in the center, what is wonderful is that the people who take you around at Vien Kum Kam are the people who live there. When it was excavated, everybody had to move off the land they had been living on top of and into the villages around there. And there's a lot of discussion about that. So local people said, well, why don't we have them be involved in the running, the development, and the various visits to Vien Kum Kam. So the carriages and also the guides and also the buses that go around Vien Kum Kam are all run by local people. Temples. Now you go into temples to learn about religion, most people do these days. But in fact, temples are very interesting sources of collections, mainly because nobody wants to keep old stuff. If you've been here a while, you'll know that when somebody passes on, they take all the old stuff to the temple, and of course the temple keeps some things that are related to sacred things, but also related to the community, and then they'll also give it away to people who don't have things. So the temples have become really big sources of collections that relate specifically to the communities in which they're located and the congregations that they serve. And the development of temple museums has been huge, and it's one of the things that I've worked on. My background has been primarily in ethnographic temples, ethnographic museums, but also in temple museums, helping the monks take care of all that stuff, working with the temple council. And as a result, we have been able to develop a program that's based in the Buddhist university system that offers museology courses specifically to monks to help look after all the old stuff. Here's some pictures of various temple museums, and we have a bunch of them in Chiang Mai, of course, as they do in every town. But you can see all the different things that are just brought to the temple and left there. And the reason for that is that they know that people are very attached to what they've used during their life, and it might prevent their spirit from being reborn into another life if you hang on to it. And you don't want to do that. You want to let them go. So you let their things go too. But you put them in a place where they can be remembered. Ethnographic museums. We have the Highland People's Discovery Museum. It's a big collection of ethnographic objects that were put together primarily by missionary groups that were working up in the hills. And also have the Lana Folklife Museum, which is in the old courthouse, of all places, in the center of town. And then the Museum of Lana Ethnicity, which is put together by Rajaput University, which was, is kind of the equivalent of state universities. It's a national university system. There are over 50 campuses around the country. And Rajaput has focused on preserving and communicating the culture that is local to the area where they are located. And the one in Chiang Mai is also very interesting, and we will be visiting it soon. So here's some pictures of, different events and objects and books and libraries. Many of these places, particularly the ethnographic museums, also have libraries that are associated with them, mostly in Thai, of course, but where people can actually look at the stuff and then find a book that'll tell them something about it. Art, of course, as you know, is a very important part of Thai culture, particularly up here in northern Thailand. And one of the first national art centers was actually built at Chiang Mai University. The one that they call the CMU Art Center is actually a part of a project which is developing regional branches of art that are actually created through a budget that comes from the government, and specifically to communicate the artistic creations. My Iem is on the way to Sankampang. My Iem is a very interesting place. I knew, of course, Jean-Michel Bourdelais and his wife Kupatsi, who originally started her collection is what is at the base of that collection. She used to visit up in Chiang Rai, visiting Tawan Dachini, collected art from the artists in Chiang Rai a lot, and also Chiang Mai. And then down below, Watana Art Gallery is up the Umong area here in Chiang Mai. Very, very wonderful place to visit. It's the owner is a former professor at Chiang Mai University, a professor of art and an artist, and he loves to welcome people. We also have military museums. Don't usually think about it. A lot of people have seen the Tango Squadron Museum, which if you drive through the airport from over at Central Airport trying to go to Niman, then you pass and see a bunch of old airplanes. But that is a museum. It was closed for several years and it's just preparing to reopen again. And we will be doing an excursion. We had one planned and then it got canceled because of the pandemic, but we are planning on going there again. And the Gavila Memorial Museum, which is across on the riverside of the military headquarters in Chiang Mai, and also on the way up towards Merim, the Artillery Museum, which also concentrates a lot on the counterinsurgency programs that took place post-World War II. Here's some pictures from those. The Tango Squadron Museum is very interesting because it's become the location designated by the former curator of the Don Mueang Museum, military museum, aircraft museum in Bangkok, as a location to keep things that have been excavated from crash sites that took place during World War II, flying tigers and other people who were flying in this area. So what is a museum in Thailand? You don't realize that when you go into a temple, you're seeing a museum. I have a picture here of Wat Pha Seng. Everybody knows where that is, of course, right? Yes. So the original Thai museum, and this is part of what I study, I'm not a curator, I'm what you call a museologist, which is a person who studies philosophy of museums and how it's exhibited in different countries and different cultures. But you have communication, and an example of that, of course, are the murals on the left-hand side. Most of the murals up here, like in Wapasing and other places, show people in their everyday life, in their everyday clothing, their markets, you know, the objects that they use, and it's very communicative, even though it is a story about something that happened 2,500 years ago, you know, that the Buddha was telling. So it's exhibited in using local culture. And then you also have a storage area. When you look at the Prachedi all the way up at the top, that bell-shaped area is hollow. Did you know that? Yes, it is hollow. And inside there are the sacred objects, old sacred objects. So Buddha images that were returned to the temple, other objects that belong to monks, but you know, very important objects. It's also where the Emerald Buddha was discovered in Chiang Rai at the top of a Prachedi. And now, of course, it has traveled to a number of different countries and now resides in Bangkok. But it was here for a while as well. And then on the right-hand side, you have the research center, which is the library. All of the temples have libraries. Now they tend to be in the big, fancy, modern buildings with air conditioning so that the books don't disintegrate, but they always had a very special and separate area where research, you know, the books and also the information that related to the local areas, the chronicles, were stored. So you had three aspects of museums, which are the important things: communication, storage, and research. So what is very interesting is that how did the Fine Arts Department get involved in developing museums in Chiang Mai? They started excavating a lot of the archaeological sites. It was called Nopapuri Si Nakhon Ping Chiang Mai at that time. And this is back in 1933. They started with a number, I think it was a total of 17 different sites that were indicated as being important archaeological sites. And so they started surveying and documenting these sites, basically to conserve information and knowledge and discover knowledge about the northern region. And to date, they have actually registered, officially registered as National Heritage Sites, a total of 63 sites. And it began in 1934, the actual registration, excavation in 33, registration in 34. And of course, these are some of the more famous sites, you know, within the mall and around the moat. Wat Si Gut, Nahas, Wat Chiang Man, all of these had been excavated and documented and photographs taken of them. And they are actually on the Fine Arts Department documentation database. You have to know how to get in there, and of course you also have to know how to read Thai. So if you do, look for it. But these are some of the old pictures that were taken at that time, and I compare it with the newer pictures. You can see the moat was actually full of all kinds of plants. And what happened here? Did I do something? There it goes. And also Vien Kum Kam that I talked about, the old city, was also excavated, you know, during this process and documented. A lot of other old sites, Wat Jedi Luang, where the Emerald Buddha was located. You see the Prachedi has, how can I say, been damaged after the Emerald Buddha decided that people were fighting each other too much in Chiang Mai and wanted to go on to a more peaceful place. And when the son of the temple of the kingdom of Lan San and Lan Na in Laos, who was married to the princess of Chiang Mai, his father passed away and he had to become king. He invited the Emerald Buddha to descend the Mekong River with him. And the Emerald Buddha said, "Oh yeah, that sounds like fun, I'll go." And so agreed to get onto an elephant to go to Chiang Kong and went down the river to Luang Prabang and then on to Vientiane eventually. But after he left, he abandoned Chiang Mai. The gods demonstrated their dissatisfaction with injustice by the ruling people, which is what local people believe are the origins of earthquakes. And the Pracheti was destroyed during an earthquake. This is back in the 16th century. Also, we have, you recognize this place, Wat Suandok, the original location of the relics of the royal family. Actually, is where the local market is located, Wat Gororod, Wat Gat Luang, right next to the last palace of the royal family, which is now the American consulate. And the Princess Dara Rasami decided to move the relics of the royal family out there. But what is interesting is that you can go and look at the reliquaries of all of the members of the royal family who are enshrined there. And of course, it's a wonderful location for learning about Buddhism. More archaeological sites. And leading up to the mountain that we hopefully see most of the year, except for a certain part of the year, going up Wat Sutet. Now, there's another old picture. Actually, it combined not only the cultural heritage, the religious heritage, and the natural heritage being located in a national park, but also has a very interesting museum, and which you can also visit. So you can go up and and learn about Buddhism and look at the city down below and go up through the beautiful national park and see the museum at the same time. So altogether we have 1,556 museums in Thailand. Very few people realize that are registered with the Sirantan Anthropology Center down in Bangkok. And they're divided into different categories. So you can see all the different categories. You have performing arts, textile, banking, archaeology, history, architecture, all kinds of different monasteries, local wisdom. Local wisdom is the largest group of national museums, or rather nationally registered museums. And these are museums that are put together by communities to preserve what they have, to get everything out of the house, but they want to keep it in the area where they live so that they can teach their kids and their grandkids and share their culture that they grew up with. 281 museums are in northern Thailand, and 120 are in Chiang Mai. 68 are in the greater Chiang Mai area, in this valley area, and 37 are in the central district in the Ampur Mueang. So who runs them? You have temples, you have educational institutions, government offices, lots of very interesting museums at the government offices. You do have to make reservations and let them know that you're coming, and we are doing that with Payak Lifelong Learning now. It's one of the things that I've been working on. In the next year, we're going to have a whole series of museum visits and contacting the government offices that have museums and administer museums to allow us to go in and look at their collections. Because many of the organizations, from agriculture to land to other organizations, education, whatever, have collections that they've kept in the ministry offices here in town. And then private museums, community groups, and nonprofit organizations. So this gets to the whole idea of what a museum is. It's a mixture of lots of different things. And this is a definition of museum, the international definition, a nonprofit, permanent institution in the service of society, which conserves, research, communicates, and exhibits both tangible and intangible heritage of humanity and its environment for the purposes of education, study, and enjoyment, hopefully. So the National Museum is very important to visit. It is the regional center of communication and research, and also huge collections there. And it was founded in 1973 as a branch of the National Museum in Bangkok. It's also the center of the office for the Fine Arts Department in doing research and excavation in this area. Here are some of the objects that you would see in there. It's on the highway. If you go up to Maya or Maya, depending on how you like to pronounce the term, you go out on the highway, it'll be on the left-hand side as you go out. And it's got very important objects. These are sacred objects. And it's also got a virtual museum link. The links here, it's a little bit complicated to do the links and kind of long, so I think that, I just put that in there to tell you that there are links. If you go onto the website, you can do a virtual link to see what's in there, to decide if you want to visit. Chiang Mai Arts and Cultural Center is at the Three Kings Monument, and there are 4 different collections there. It's very interesting. It's on the location of a former royal hall. That hall was removed. And of course, to establish the Siamese presence here in Chiang Mai, it was placed right on top of it. And it was the administrative office of the Monton Payap, and the court was established in 32. The Three Kings Monument was actually commemorated by Rama IX, King Bhumibol, in 1984, and the city gates were rebuilt in 1985, designed, researched by a very respected German researcher, Hans Penn. You may have seen his book, A Short History of Lanna, and he worked with also Chiang Mai and Thai archaeologists and architects to rebuild the gates. And of course, the rebuilding of the gates has been controversial, and you can see that we have one gate, the rebuilt areas have disintegrated, and now they're doing excavation at the moment at Wat Chan Puak, the White Elephant Gate, which is the gate that faces the east towards Chiang Rai, towards the origin of where the king of Chiang Mai came from, and it's a very interesting gate. In the old days, royal presence always entered through the Chan Puak gate, so it's a very important gate. And then in 1996, Chiang Mai celebrated 700 years of its founding, and the city and provincial authorities were moved outside the city. So those buildings became available to be turned into museums, and Princess Surintorn came up here in 2002 to actually open those museums, so that was 21 years ago. Have the Art and Cultural Center, the Historical Center, the Lanna Folklife Museum, and the House of Photography. So all of those things come together to communicate the history, to preserve and communicate the history of the area. The House of Photography is a very interesting place. It's kind of off in the back. It's a former house of the chief judge in the court, because the Lanna Folklife Museum is in the old courthouse. And this is actually preserving photographs that people have from their families, past generations. And the House of Photography has been scanning the photographs and also preserving them, and people didn't want to keep them, but they have a place to keep them. And it's now been named a UNESCO heritage place as a result of that, because they have been able to preserve the photographs. And you can go in there, it's free entrance. You can go in there and you can look at their collection. You can also use the Wi-Fi, and they've got a link to their database, and they've also got some online. But they're redoing the website now, and so the collections online are only in Thai, unfortunately. But I'm working on the English translation of all of that, and we will have it up in English soon, I hope. Also, another really interesting place is the Bank of Thailand. You may go by it, and Bank of Thailand is fascinating because it connects the whole idea of exchange along the commercial networks. And Chiang Mai, of course, was the center of exchange and commerce. And money and textiles go together, and it's something that people don't really remember that, you would exchange money, you could also exchange textiles. And so you have a combination of both, an exhibition on currency and money and the history of it in this area, and also the textile collection that was developed. So somebody would say, oh yeah, I made a trip down there and I went to this town or I went to this village and they gave me this. And so you show a textile. It can be a skirt, it can be a shirt, it can be a woven piece that you would bring back home. And people say, oh, that's really interesting. It's really different. Because every area is different. So it's a wonderful place to visit. Also, the Philatelic Museum is fascinating. You don't usually think of it. You walk right by it when you go by the market. If you went in there and you went upstairs, you would see the museum and the collection. They have an incredible collection about the postal office. Many people, I think you probably realize that actually the postal service here is quite good and quite well developed, and people are proud of it. And the exchange that it recommended with the rest of the world, that it presented with the rest of the world. So that exhibit is interesting. It's another place that we'll be going. Lots of old pictures as well. Dara Pirom Palace is the final home of Princess Dara Rassami. It's out at the Border Patrol Police headquarters out towards in Merim, actually behind the Merim Empire. And we also will be on a regular basis, we do an excursion out there and talk about her and her life and how she also helped to revive and preserve Lana culture. Musical Instrument Museum at Rajabhat University at the Cultural Center. The collection is incredible. So if you want to learn about traditional music, that's a great place to go. University museums, a whole bunch of them. And one part of them, of course, is the collection of old Lana houses that's behind Chiang Mai University. It's an open air area. You just walk in and you walk around the area and you see all kinds of different houses. Let's see, there we go. And the Highland People's Museum, which is close to where Payap is. Near McCormick. Very interesting collection. It was put together by the noted anthropologist, Professor Geddes, who passed away not so long ago. And he made sure that the ethnographic collections also represented the Highland area people. And a museum at Prince Royal College, the Harris House, which focuses on the history of the missionaries in Chiang Mai. And then one that I've been working on recently as an advisor is, they call it the Dr. Prince Museum, or the Prince Mahidol Museum. It's a house where Prince Mahidol lived when he worked at McCormick Hospital. And it talks about his work, but also the development of public health and medical services here in Chiang Mai. It's across the street from McCormick Hospital. And then natural history museums. Very few people think of a zoo as being a museum. They go in and say, oh, they got the animals all caged up. But in fact, the zoo is a collection of animals. They're alive, of course. And one of the interesting things about the Chiang Mai Zoo is that Chiang Mai University uses it for internships for kids who are studying, students who are studying the natural history of the area, and particularly the fauna of the area, and they help to look after the animals. So, one of the interesting things is that it was originally a site set up by Harold Young, an American missionary here, who was doing jungle survival training for Thai kids going into the military, going out to work in the fields and in the jungle. And So he donated the property. The property actually belonged to the Neiman Heyman family, and they donated it to the forestry department, and then he was named the first director of the zoo. So he actually ran the zoo until the early 1970s when he passed away. But he is on the site, and that link is actually to the site if you go Chiang Mai Zoo. If you go to Chiang Mai Zoo, you'll see the history of Harold Young and the work that he did in setting up the zoo. It's also one of the places that's very highly respected all over Asia. It has one of the highest visitor rates anywhere. And of course, this botanic garden, which was set up by advisors from the National Science Museum down in Bangkok, and is a wonderful place to visit as well. Finally, like I say, the links are difficult, so if you search Museum Thailand, you'll get to a website, and the website is in English. And if you click on Northern Thailand and then click on Chiang Mai, you'll get a whole list of all of the museums up here, and you can find out more information. Ah, wonderful. Museum Thailand, yes. Oh, great. Can you go to Museum Thailand? I'm sorry, you can't really see it from there, that's the problem. Down, sorry. Here, yeah, you just were there, yes. And then go up to the top, the map, click on Northern, yes. And Chiang Mai, yes. Yes, you were just there, yes. Up. Yes, right there. No, that's Chiang Mai. No. Anyway, if you can see what you can click on, but Chiang Mai is the first up one there. Chiang Mai. You were just there. Yeah, okay. And so it has all of the museum sites, and you can click on them and find out more about them, where they're located. I do have a little sign telling me that I need to close up here. I would like to mention one more slide, 2 more slides, please. Oh, sorry, my slide. So thank you very much. This is a Buddha image, one of my favorites in the National Museum. But also to tell you that, Lifelong Learning at Payap has a lot of museum visits, and you can go to the website and you can see our next one is a heritage walk that Graham is doing. He did a wonderful, just published a book by River Books called Enchanted Chiang Mai. And we will be doing a talk on the history and culture of Chiang Rai and going up there and looking at museums. So thank you very much. And just one thing before I close. Everybody walks into a museum and say, how come they're charging me as a foreigner more? And the main reason has to do with the fact that the government subsidizes visits by Thai people to the National Museum and to all of the museums. All kids get at least 2 visits a year, and other people do as well. So if you're Thai and you go into the museum, it's counted in the numbers of people that go into the museum, and then they are able to apply for funding from the Thai government. So it is actually part of a Thai national program. The other thing is that the rates that are done for foreign visitors, usually if you're over 60, you get a reduction. So if you tell them, okay, I'm over 60, and you get a reduction, and instead of 100 baht, you may pay 20 baht. Actually, if you go into the zoo and you tell them you're over 60, they let you in free, which is really nice. And it's a wonderful place to walk around and to visit. The other thing is that they really need support. Particularly tour companies don't ever want to pay an extra 100 baht. They'll pay, 3,000 baht for a room, they'll pay 1,000 baht for a guide, they'll pay all kinds of money for food and everything else, and they'll completely avoid all of the museums because they don't want to pay any extra money. So museums are having a really hard time. 25% of their budget goes to operating expenses, and when you don't have the money to pay for your lights or anything, it basically closes down. So it's very important to help to support, and that's what PIAP does. We pay the foreign entrance fees, plus we give a donation to every museum that we visit. So thank you very much for your time. And I understand someone might have a question. I've gone a little bit over time. No questions? Great. Okay, have fun. Visit the museum.